Here's the train we'll be riding on from Chama, New Mexico up to Osier, Colorado. We're going to be on the last car, and they haven't pulled the engine around to the front of the train yet, but there's some of the old box cars. It's a narrow gauge railroad, a little narrower than a standard railroad, and this railroad line was built in 1880, and at the top it climbs up from here, and at the top it reaches elevation 10,000 feet. Any day here in the mountains in early October on a Sunday. We're going to leave at 10 a.m. and I see like a steam engine down there because it's going to back up to pull the train.
In this video, I'm going to show you some scenes from a scenic railroad trip we took from really far north in New Mexico, just south of the Colorado border, on an antique railroad, narrow gauge railroad that goes along the New Mexico-Colorado border. And this is the train we took. And most of the cars are standard cars with seats facing forward. And there's also a gondola car, open air car that you could stand in for people who want to walk back to go to that car. And we were in the very last car, in the parlor car. We felt like, how many times are we going to do a scenic railroad trip like this, especially in Colorado, New Mexico? So we went for it all and got on the nicest car of the train, where the seats sit facing out towards the windows. So this is the area of New Mexico that the railroad is in. We drove up from Santa Fe. You can also drive over from Taos. We thought about doing that. And the scenic drive, either way, is just fantastic. I can't recommend it highly enough. I talk about it a lot in another video where I talk about the highways of New Mexico, and these two different roads were both really fantastic. So that really set the tone for the whole day. We were used to some really great scenery going up to this town, extreme northern New Mexico, called Chama, where the railroad left from. And then this is the route that the train can take. It can go from two directions. You can either start in Chama, New Mexico, and go east, which we did. And as you can see from the route map, it's a very winding route because it goes in and around canyons and sort of semi-mountains, not huge mountains, but it's not a straight line by any means. And then you go to the town of Osier, which is in Colorado. And as you can see in the map on the upper right-hand side, the area we're looking at is right on the border of New Mexico and Colorado. So it's just a beautiful area. And so we took the train to Osier, where you stop for lunch. And then another train starts in Antonito, Colorado, and it goes west, and it has an even more circuitous route. Looks like a lot of curves. We didn't go on that part of the route. We had lunch at Osier, and then we took the next train back to Chama, where our car was parked. But we noticed that a lot of the people, if not most of the people, will get on the train in one end and then take the train all the way, stop for lunch, and then continue on that same train and go all the way to the other end. And then they have to catch a bus that takes them back to where they started from, so that's how you get back to your car. So we thought it'd be more convenient and less time consuming to not have to take a bus ride after what turned out to be a long day. I'll describe it further, but it turned out to be kind of a long day. So this you get up there to Chama. There's a breakfast place right across the street. Have a great buffet. There's one other restaurant we noticed in a very little town that I think is on a Native American reservation, but they have regular restaurants, and so this was doing a business. Everybody here in this restaurant had to have been going to the scenic railroad, I imagine. And this just shows you the elevation that you're at just to start with, 78, 60 feet, which is almost 8,000 feet, and then you will go up to an elevation of 10,000 during the train ride, so it's quite high. And it was really raining a lot when we got there. We did this on a Sunday morning in early October, and it was really raining, so we got wet just going to the little station house. And you can see our train is parked over there to the left, and they're going to pull an engine in front of it, and then we're going to go towards the camera heading east. So you go in there and you go to the ticket counter. You have to make reservations, and this train was fully booked. Not anybody could walk in and just get tickets off the street. You had to have a reservation, but you go to the ticket window, you give them your reservation number, and they give you tickets to actually present when you get on the train. And these are a lot of the people waiting to get on the train. It was raining a lot, so people were just hanging out inside, and it was warm there. That's another thing. The train cars, they say they're not heated, and that did come into play because if you're wet and there's no heat in the car, that sort of can make it a longer day. So the train departure was at 10 a.m. They want you to get there like a half hour early, and that's what we did. So this is a typical car where the seats are facing forward. And then we learned that we had to walk down through this between another sort of old freight train. Maybe it's actually a regular freight train on a narrow gauge railroad, and we had to walk to the last car, and that's where we got on. And then this is the parlor car that we rode on in the back of the train, and we had like a stewardess, a nice lady. She talked about the history and some of the scenic viewpoints that we would be going by. And as you can see, the chairs are nice with cushions, and they give you some bags that when you come into the car, they're overhanging the back of the chairs. So that was nice. And then you can see the white boxes along the window that people have in front of them. They give out free, as part of your ticket price, canisters, I think for hot or cold beverages, but they're very nice. It was very well done. And the car was very nice. And this just shows you another view. So you sit facing sideways, and sometimes everybody sits facing the same direction because the scenery tends to be out one side of the window or another. And if you look, we're at the back of the train. The woman in the green parka or jacket, she's standing in the back area. And people would do that. They would walk to the end and stood out there and watched the scenery in reverse. You know, you're going forward, but you're watching where you've just been. So, and this is the swag I was talking about that they give you. So that's a nice thing. Very nice bag. I don't ever want to use it. It's just such a nice bag, and the canisters. And this is just another scene. And as I mentioned, it had been raining. It was raining a lot early on our trip. And with all of us breathing in the car, it was steaming up the car. So there was a lot of people wiping the windows in order to be able to see out. So it got off to a kind of a cold, damp start, but that's the way it goes sometimes. You can't always have perfect weather, but the weather did get nicer as the day went on.
Look at how cute. Oh, look,
It's like leaving all the Japanese
no, not someone across the highway. we're coming up to a little trestle, and under the trestle is a dirt road that goes off that way. That is the original Highway 17 also, but it is still used because people camp that way. And if you go that way, it's the official Continental Divide hiking trail. So we're coming up to Cumbres Pass, and it's 10,015 foot elevation or 10,022 foot elevation. Depends on which side of the road you look at. The sign on the side of the road.
Osier. There's a little follower car over there. We're gonna have lunch here and then turn around, take another train going back. And this train will go to Antonito, Colorado. And then people will take a bus back to where we started. That's what my wife got for lunch. Here at the lunch place. And there's the train we came in on. And some cows.
They get their power from solar panels and generators. They have wells for water, and the wells are fed by the streams up in the valley there. They have holding tanks that have to be pumped all the time. And these are strictly summer cabins. Because in this valley, all over through here, they get between 20 and 25 feet of snow.
So this is one of the points of interest along the route when you cross the Continental Divide and you're at very high elevation. And this is where the train came into Osier, Colorado, which is, from what I can tell, is just this building. I don't know if there's a regular village of Osier somewhere, but spelled O-S-I-E-R. Anyway, this was a big facility where they had enough room for lunch for everybody on the train. And this is what the dining hall looked like. And they served dishes of people who eat meat and also vegetarian. And people got in line and everybody sat down. And then the train we were on pulled ahead, and this is looking out the window to the west. And as I mentioned, there were cows near the train, and they walked right up to the train at one point, and very curious. I guess this is why they have cow catchers on old locomotives for when cows would be on the tracks. The engine would just sweep them up with the cow catcher and push them off the tracks so the train could keep moving along. This is a freight train that was headed back east, and maybe it was really carrying real freight. That's what this line used to do back during the mining days of the Old West. So after we had lunch, we had time to walk around, and this is the back of one of the trains. I just thought that was a cool logo. And look at the train that had just pulled into the place to have lunch. And this is the train going back west with new passengers on board. And we came up all the way from in the distance, came up this valley, and the track kind of hugs the side of the valley so that it can do a gradual ascent. And you can see a track that we were on, it kind of has to do a horseshoe and loop around. So the track you see there is what we were just on as we came up this long gradual valley. It's just another shot of the valley. And I'm going to stop here and just talk about my overall experience with the trip. And I stop at this picture because these people are having a good time filming the train going by and waving to everyone. And you know what? I love trains, so I wanted to ride on a train. And it was a unique experience riding on it, but it was a very long day. It was a slow-moving train, and by the way, I mean, our tickets for the rear parlor car were not cheap. $500 for the two of us, plus a historic preservation fee, another $30, $40. And we got the free gifts and everything, and they served complimentary drinks, and the lunch was included in the price. But when we took the train from Chama east to Osier, and we got to Osier, I expected there to be like a half hour to an hour spent having lunch before we would go back west. But what it turned out was, and I don't know if this is the case every time you ride the train, but we all went there and had lunch, and then we went outside, and then the westbound train came from Antonito, and all those people got off the train and filed past us who had just had our lunch, and then they got in line, and then they had lunch. So you're sort of standing around for that group of people to have their lunch, and then you get on the train, and then you finally pull out and go back west. And either direction you're going, whether you're going back to where you started or continuing on, it's still another couple of hours until you get back to the place that you're going to. And then the people who decided to go the whole length of the route, they still have to get on a bus and take an hour or so, maybe more, of a bus ride back to their original point of leaving. And so that's an extra hour on the trip. So this train ride started at 10. They wanted us there by 9:30. We left early we had to drive a ways to get here, and took the train, and it was kind of cold because they don't heat the cars. And the lady in our car couldn't have been nicer, and the lunch was very nice and everything, but it just was a very long day. And coming back to this picture, I think you can get what you want out of an antique train experience by coming and just filming it go by. And we noticed some people would drive and film it from one road, and then they knew the back roads, and they would drive to the next road and take more pictures of the train going by. And I mean, I'm all in support of keeping antique railroads going and everything, but these people were enjoying it as much, if not more, than us, and they weren't paying anything just to watch the train go by. And I just make this point because we drove up through some beautiful area, much more dramatic than what we saw from the train, and then as beautiful as it was along the New Mexico-Colorado border. And then when we drove to Taos after this, it was an equally, if not more, interesting and beautiful ride, dramatic ride. So those times that we traveled to and from the train ride, we could have spent more time on the road and stopping more places where the scenery was really fantastic. But we were pressed for time. We sort of felt like we had to rush from Santa Fe to get up here. And then the train ride turned out to be a longer experience than we expected, maybe 6-7 hours. And maybe we were thinking, well, we'd get there for lunch and then it'd be a trip back to the end and we may be finished at 2. But no, it was more like 4 or 5 o'clock by the time we finally got back. So I would recommend you do what these people are doing and just save some time, watch the train go by a couple times. You'll get as much out of the experience as you would actually riding the train. And you'll get to actually see the train, which is fantastic to look at as it goes by. And then you have more time to explore and experience the beautiful scenery in northern New Mexico, which I can't recommend highly enough. So at the end of our trip, finally got back to Chama. As you can see, the sun is starting to go down. People are getting off the train. You see the gondola car I was mentioning before, where people could stand in an open air situation and watch the scenery without sitting in a car, which is interesting for a while, I guess. And it was a cute train station, and you can see the bus over to the right that's going to take the people who've done the complete ride from Antonito all the way to Chama. They're going to take a bus back to Antonito. So they've still got another hour or more ahead of them just to get back to where they started from. But we had done the experience. It was great to say we have done it one time, but we had to get in our car and we got going. So I leave you with that. Just another thought. I love trains, but sometimes it's more fun to watch them go by, I think, than actually ride them. And the other point I make is the train was a very slow moving train, and I love train travel, but it can be a lot faster. And I don't know if it's that they go so slowly that you're almost looking forward to the next mile marker to show that you're progressing closer to your final destination. But when you start doing that, you know that it's a long day, it's a long ride. And trains, I always picture trains from yesteryear as going a lot faster, but maybe they go slow just to preserve the track and to not push the equipment. Which, by the way, you might think a lot of this is from the 1800s. No, it's from the early 1900s. So it's antique, but it's not that old. It is from the age of steam, but still, it's not been around forever. So anyway, that's my thoughts on taking a tourist train on the northern edge of New Mexico on the Colorado border. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.